Okay, I'm going to be going over how I build the input drum on a 4L60, 4L60E. It's all the same. This is a 298 millimeter drum. It is a little different. You need a different tool, especially for the one that has the reluctor shaft, and for the 300M. This is for the older style like 700, R4, or 4L60. But they still used this 298 millimeter with the pilot tip all the way up to, I think, was 2002 or 2003. But I am going to go over everything that I do with installing them. It's quite a simple, you know, if you have the tool, it's very easy, obviously. You just set the tool up, just loosen it down till I get to the sealing ring land. Put a little bit of lube on the tool, makes it a little easier. And just take the ring. You don't want to stay on the tool too long. You want to go down it kind of quick like that. And then just move it up to the next, make sure it's in the groove, and I'll get into resizing it here in a minute. A little bit more lube, do the next ring. I'm just setting the tool right to where just the ring groove is exposed a little bit, so it falls right into it. Just make sure it gets into the groove, at least on one side of it right away. They do make the butt cut rings. I use those sometimes, but this seems to work the best really for the end result. But there's nothing wrong with the scarf cuts or the butt cut rings. Some people say that they leak, but actually all the high performance like power glides and things like that use a very hard ring, and they are scarf cut rings, and they work very well. Because usually on a high performance application or something where you're adjusting the pressure and turning up the pressure, you're going to get, it really is not going to matter when it has a cut on it like that at all. It's going to be kind of irrelevant fluid loss at that little point. So now that I have all the rings on from the tool, now I just have to resize them using the resizer. And this, it's not too hard. You just kind of walk it back and forth, side to side and around while you're pushing down on it. And eventually you'll get it. But be careful, if you catch any resistance, it'll be because the ring is trying to walk out, and then you'll cut it. And I did do that already, and I'll show you exactly how that happens. It's just a old stator tube out of an old pump. Goes on out, see? There, you can do just like I did. See how I cut it? Putting the tube on, so that ring's junk. Got to get a new one. I did it putting the stator on and put a new ring on it already. And that's why I do keep the stator, like an old stator from, you know, a job where the stator's bad, teeth are bad, or it's cracked. But it works great to leave it set on here. Granted, most people won't have that. You can just leave it set on here for a couple hours. I like to leave them sit on here overnight. And just twist and push down, and then there, boom, it's on. And I'll just leave it set all night like that, so that way when I'm ready to load the drums and put the pump in the case, then I'll run less risk of cutting one of the rings, because it'll be sized to an actual stator instead of the tool. Because the tool is, it gets old, it's plastic, you know, it's not quite as tight as it used to be, you know, so I mean it works, but just not like it used to when it was brand new. All right, I'm going to go grab all the components to load into the drum. For the first component going in is the O-ring that seals against the one piston apply housing. I'll show you here in a second. There's this little groove down in there. Kind of hard trying to keep my hand out of the way. There's this little groove right there that it goes around. But it seals against the inside of this piston, and this is the steel piston I've already polished up and made ready to go in. But the forward molded piston is the forward molded piston housing. That's kind of that's what seals on the inner ring here. Just get a little bit of, I use actually a little bit of engine oil and trans gel is what I use. Not much. And I am using the high performance blue pistons in this one. The 3/4 piston, very easy, just goes in by hand and just locks down in real easy. Now the next part, which has multiple components, let me see if I can turn it to show you how I put it together here. All right, you get the return. It goes in the 3/4 ply ring, and you've got the forward steel piston, the housing, and you can put all this in by hand. That's kind of line up. I put half the lip in, like the whole half the piston. Just kind of slowly twist and push down a little, not hard. And then you just can kind of come in even with just your nail and just walk it in like that. And then the piston's in. The Overrun will go in last. It just sits down on top. It's still quite easy. And then we need to lube up both surfaces of this, the outer component and the inner part. That this outer is the one that seals on that, or the inner seals on the ring I installed in the drum. And then you line up the larger tabs for the apply plate for 3/4 with the towers for that. Now I do have a tool which makes it easy because, you know, doing so many, but I used to use, like, you can use feeler gauge when you're putting it in. You can use like a wire tool, those work real well. The Trans-Tech green discs, those work pretty good, but I use the tool. I'll show you how this goes in here. And the tool just sits down and it's just tapered, and it's the exact diameter of this part right here. So when it goes down on, it'll just slide over. It's fairly easy. Makes it really easy to load these components. Just gotta lube it up real good on the tool, down around where the 3/4 ply is, around down to that O-ring. And you just kind of, you need to be careful, cut your hand real bad because this is really sharp. But I just kind of hold it to the side and just let it drop real slow while I'm wiggling back and forth and pushing down. And it's in. It makes it really easy. Then again, you got to lube because the Overrun piston is going to go in next. I mean, if you have the right tools, it makes it very easy. It's still not hard with the other components, but it will take you more time. And again, I'm just kind of rocking back and forth, and it's in. And we just need the return spring, snap ring. It's a good idea too on your snap ring. Even though it looks good, it's not misshapen, still, don't do it too hard, but take it and hit it against something hard like that a couple times on each side. Just kind of helps bring it back together a little bit more because you're getting ready to expand it again. And something else to pay attention to, hopefully you can see it, is the piston return spring. There's keepers on it. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you can see, the snap ring is in between the keeper and the actual housing. Now where you end the snap ring gap, you don't want this gap exposing one of the keepers. You want the gap to be offset and actually preferably in between, just like this one is, in between two of the keepers right here. Because otherwise you can allow the snap ring to actually come out of the groove when this drum applies, and then boom, snap ring comes off, drum comes off, or the piston will come off, it'll cook the clutch pack, and sayonara, the tranny's finished. On to the input Sprag assembly. You got the Overrun clutch hub, the forward clutch hub. You can call this the outer race, the inner race with the sun gear. I've already polished all the surfaces on the races. I've installed my bushings already. they're ready to go. And it is a Borg Warner dual cage Sprag. The easiest way I found to put these in, and it works on any Sprag really, is this particular one. I'll take the Overrun clutch hub, set it like that. The pressed in part with the sun gear and the inner race. I'll take my cap, press my cap on, set it there. Take my other cap, set it aside. Take my outer race and just kind of set it in here. Just kind of rotate it while you're pushing it down in and spinning it and just kind of working it. It's really easy to get in there, and it just sit there like that. Now I know when I'm putting it in this way, like that the outer piece where the notch is needs to face to the right when I'm putting it in like this. Then what I will do is I will take this with it in there, set it on that hub this direction with the lip down, just like how it would come out of the transmission. Just set it down there like that, and I'll take the inner race and there it's in. I've already got the washer on this side, and I'll just take my other cap, washer, whatever you want to call it, make sure it's in there, take my hub, grab my snap ring on, and just install the snap ring. And now for rotation, just because I know, just doing so many, you'll hold this component. This is now going to rotate clockwise. If you held the gear, this component will rotate counterclockwise. But as far as the ATSG book, it tells you, it doesn't really show the gear style, it just shows you holding the outer race. And it shows that this direction is freewheel, this direction counterclockwise is holding. Next component is the input shaft, output shaft seal. There's actually two types. There's a hardened plastic. It's very hard plastic. You'll see these on 700 R4 kits all come with these, which they work fine, but there is a much better, softer type of seal that's used on all the 4L60E. And all the kits, no matter where you get one, all the 700 R4 kits are going to have a plastic hardened one, and all the 4L60Es are going to have this softer one. Prefer to use the softer one on all the builds, but I mean, the 700 one, people will argue different things about it on why you should use it, but in actuality, this is a better type of seal, and overhaul kit companies should just go ahead and get rid of the hardened type for the 700. You put that seal in. I've already pre-soaked the bearing and set the bearing in there. Then you've got your Overrun clutches. It always starts out with a steel lining the two teeth to the lug tower, then a friction, and a steel, and a friction. And make sure it's down and not setting up on the edges. Let me take the Sprag assembly and just get the Overrun hub to line up to both the frictions like that, where it spins freely. It's got a little friction drag. Make sure they're free. I'll take it back out, make sure, because the next component is the pressure plate for Overrun. There's really no direction for this. You can run it either way. There is a dot on both sides of the plate, but you can definitely see the wear marks on it. This side had the Wavy steel for forward. This side definitely had a little bit of the wear. You can see the shadowing for that clutch. That's how it will go back. That's the Overrun pressure plate. Then the forward, this is a Wavy steel. It's kind of hard to tell. Let's see if I can show you on another steel. Yeah, you can see the gap there where it is a Wavy steel. It always goes first. And then the same thing, you line up the two outer tabs in that same tower that Overrun was in. Then a steel. Then you start the friction stack itself. This is when I'll put back in the race or not the race, but the Sprag assembly. Friction, steel. And I am using the high energy graphite friction from Alto. I found that these work very well in just about any application versus the high energy, because these actually have graphite in them. So they do perform quite a bit better than just a high energy lining. I'm just alternating. It takes a total of 5 flat steels and 5 frictions. Now I can just tell by feel that that is pretty damn perfect. And the pressure plate, and again, I can tell by looking, and what I'm looking at is the snap ring groove that goes in where the pressure plate, the gap from the top of this plate to this snap ring cutout of the lug tower. I can see from the side the height of that, which will be my clutch pack travel on this unit. And I can see exactly what that is, and it looks like it's about 45 to 0.050, which is right where I would want it to be. There's really not much customization you can do to them. I mean, you can get early style 700 steels that are, I believe, thinner, and then you can get thicker frictions. Again, the earlier style has thicker frictions, and you can kind of mix match those, but I've never had to do that on one of these. You're just asking for trouble if you do that. I mean, each to their own, but I've never had to do it. It doesn't mean that you might not, but if someone was into it prior to you and built it incorrectly, then yeah, you could run into that kind of a problem. And then the snap ring, you do not want the snap ring gap to interfere with any of these 5 feet. You want the snap ring gap to be in like that. And you just put your screwdriver, rotate, twist, and it'll kind of walk itself in. Just like that. And my gap, that's okay that the gap is between the lugs like that, just as long as it's not touching any of the feet. Yep. Now onto the power pack that I use on the 3.4. How I set these up, it's a little different. You might have seen Ray best this. You might have even seen this pack for all I know. But it's similar to the Z pack, where each plate, be it the steel core or the friction core, let me separate them so I can show you. And grab one of the old ones. Because your steel plate looks like that, where it's just steel on both sides. Now the Alto A pack, that's the lugs for the steel style plate, and that would be what a normal friction looks like. But on both sides it's a steel. So you can stack it on top of one another. And what that does is, let me get the bottom plate. First, your apply plate with the feet that has the stepped feet on it goes in. And in the power pack, which is the A pack, and these are Red Eagle high performance paper lining on these plates, there is a high performance friction. That's friction on both sides goes first. Then you started out with a steel outer splined friction. And on these, you want the 2 small tabs to go into the larger gap. The fatter tabs go right into the tower like that, because we are going to put in special springs here for the anti-dragging of the pack. Then it's a friction plate one-sided core, and then you just alternate. And you'll get up to 14 is what you'll get there. Or no, it's 12. You'll have 12 single-sided plates in the unit. plus that bottom plate, which is a double side. So you have 12, 13, 14 total friction surfaces inside of the 3/4 pack, and it is the Red Eagle material, which will handle a lot more heat than pretty much anything out there, really. Now, the pack also comes with a .125 pressure plate. I haven't put the springs in yet because I'm just checking. It does take a special snap ring. And that's going to be really good. So I can tell, I'll take that back out, take the pressure plate out. And then the rings, or the springs I should say, I got to get all the keepers. And you have the keepers, hopefully, that whoever was in the unit before didn't throw them away. And then the factory keepers, I mean, the spring sticks off, a little hard to see, but it doesn't stick off very much. And then I like to use, and the Sonics ones aren't long enough for me either, because when you're changing this overall stack height, if you were to put these factory ones in here, it really doesn't do anything. It's below that friction surface, so it really serves no purpose at all. It's just like you might as well leave them out. But you can get a longer spring, a much longer spring, and it really helps in this pack, and you can see how much taller those are. And I'll install all these all the way around. Actually comes with the A pack, and it comes with the high performance red and choline power pack that Alto makes. It does not come with the HEG pack, only the A pack and the red and choline pack. I use a lot of these A packs just because of what they are, and they work so well. So now I've got all 5 of those in. Get my apply plate, nice special snap ring. And it is hard to get in there because you're working against all those springs. I mean, I can tell you that's going to be perfect. That's going to be right about, once I soak it and then air check it, it's going to be right around, I'm going to guess, I'm going to say it's going to be right around like 30. I'm going to guess and say it's going to be right around like 38 maybe. But we'll see. And I'm going to get back with that tomorrow.